Hello, everyone. My name is Pradeep Nayak, and I'm happy to welcome you all to the B2B thematic webinar series. And my apologies in advance because we had some technical glitch last Friday when it was scheduled, so we could not live stream it. So we have rescheduled, and we are meeting today to do the talk this week. But this is a talk for the month of September 2023. As I said, I'm going to be the host for this webinar talk. My name is Pradeep Naik. I'm at the University of Waterloo in Canada. I'm also representing the Vulnerability to Viability Global Partnership for building strong small-scale fisheries here. I'll do a few rounds of introduction first before we invite our speaker today to give their talk. And if I may request our speaker, Dr. Pranay Parida, to be on camera at this point in time, that would be great. Thank you. So as an introduction to the Vulnerability to Viability Partnership, I would start by saying that the V2B Global Partnership is a transdisciplinary research and knowledge and action network with over 100 members from Africa, Asia, and internationally, as well as Canada. The goal of the partnership is to support small-scale fisheries in their transition from vulnerability to viability. And the way we look at these transitions is not just in a one-way direction, but as small-scale fisheries can become vulnerable to viable, they can also become viable to vulnerable, given all the pressures and the drivers that are playing on them. So we look at all the transition processes and pathways from both vulnerability to viability and viability to vulnerability, and work on all of those in terms of our research. The focus of the partnership is fourfold. The first is to co-create and co-produce the knowledge that is effective and that is essential to engage in understanding the transition from vulnerability to viability. The second aspect of our research and focus is to build a database, a repository or information system that can hold all the co-produced knowledge in ways that can inform governance and policy and practice. The third aspect of our work is to develop a multi-level transdisciplinary capacity right from the community to the policy to the practice world, and all of those capacities are necessary again to engage in processes of understanding transition from vulnerability to viability. And then the fourth aspect of our work is to synthesize all of that knowledge, co-produced knowledge, and integrate them into ongoing governance processes, and therefore we could move towards a more viable small-scale fisheries by doing all of those actions. The V2B Global Partnership aims to therefore identify the diverse factors and conditions contributing to the vulnerability of small-scale fisheries and engage collaboratively with small-scale fisheries communities and other key NGO, government, and university partners to enhance SSF or small-scale fisheries viability. We are conducting transdisciplinary community-engaged research in 6 countries in Asia. That includes Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Japan, Thailand, and Malaysia. And 6 countries in Africa, that includes Ghana, Malawi, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Tanzania. In doing so, the V2B Global Partnership brings people and organizations together across physical, cultural, and disciplinary boundaries through a shared interest in addressing global change impacts on small-scale fisheries. The V2B thematic webinar series, for which we have gathered here today, is an initiative of the V2B Global Partnership to facilitate and generate high-level discussions on vulnerability and viability themes and topics within the context of small-scale fisheries. The goal is to feature academics, representatives of government and intergovernmental organizations, practitioners, and members of the civil society who have made significant contributions to the theoretical, practical, and policy aspects of small-scale fisheries, both locally and globally. The B2B thematic webinar series takes place on the last Friday of every month, and it will continue to be so during the year 2023. As I mentioned, there is a bit of deviation this week because we are doing it in the next week of the last week, last Friday, because of some technical problems last Friday. The series is available internationally through live streaming on YouTube. Details regarding the monthly webinars, including speakers, topics, and titles, and links to the webinar platform can be accessed at our webpage, which is www.v2bglobalpartnership.org. Today's webinar is the 9th in the series of V2B thematic webinars planned for the year 2023, and the 33 or 33rd since January 2021 when it started. And it is my privilege today to introduce Dr. Pranay Parida as our distinguished speaker today. Dr. Pranay Parida holds a PhD in Fisheries Resource Management and currently works as a scientist with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, from India, but he is based at the Central Inland Fisheries Research Institute in Barakpur, West Bengal. He has more than 18 years of experience in fisheries research, teaching, and extension. Presently, Dr. Parida is supporting the CRFM, which is the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, as part of the cooperation program between Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the Government of India. So he's now based in the Caribbean. Dr. Parida is assisting CRFM and its member states with fisheries assessment studies, statistical analysis of commercially exploited marine fish stocks, as well as the formulation of fisheries management plans and advice for decision making. He also provides training to fisheries biologists, data collectors, and data managers in CRFM member states and at the CRFM Secretariat. Dr. Parida started his career with the State Fisheries Department, Government of Odisha in India as an extension officer in the year 2004, and then worked with national level NGO Actions for Food Production Afro as a fisheries specialist before joining the Odisha State Rural Livelihood Mission as a state level livelihood specialist. After serving for 2 years in the Livelihoods Mission project, he joined as an assistant professor fisheries resource management at the College of Fisheries, Ludhiana in India, before joining ICAR in the year 2015. Dr. Parida has expertise in data limited fish stock assessment, GIS remote sensing, inland fisheries management, co-management of ecosystems, and modeling and aquaculture. He is credited with publication of more than 35 international peer-reviewed research papers, 10 popular articles, and 3 books. He has been awarded with 2 design patents and commercialization, and has filed another 4 patents as a co-inventor. He has furthermore conducted over 50 training programs for fishers, students from different universities, and government officials from different states of India. Dr. Parida is also, and I'm proud to announce this, as a co-investigator in the V2B Global Partnership from Fisheries. It is my honor to invite Dr. Pranay Parida today to deliver the talk for V2B thematic webinar series September 2023. And the title of his talk is going to be Challenges and Opportunities in the Sustainability of Inland Open Water Fisheries in India. So thank you very much, Dr. Parida, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, for introducing me to the V2B community. And also I'm thankful to V2B for giving me an opportunity to deliver a talk on the similar line of vulnerable to viability, in the sense of what are the challenges in inland open water fisheries and what are the opportunities that is available to address those challenges or to overcome those challenges. So today I will be delivering a lecture. I will be delivering a talk on challenges and opportunities in the sustainability of inland open water fisheries in India. That is my last 8 years of experience in working in the inland fisheries. The Central Inland Fisheries Research Institute that is located at Barakpur in Kolkata of West Bengal of India is looking after the inland fisheries research in India. And my experience of 8 years in CPRI of what are the issues, particularly in terms of production enhancement in inland open waters and the diversified factors that is affecting the inland open waters, like climate change, anthropogenic activities, how to overcome all those problems in terms of production enhancement, basically the technical aspects. I'll discuss more the technical aspects of fish production enhancement and conservation aspects. The talk will be having 3 sections. One will be the challenges to opportunities, and second one will be the problems in inland fisheries, particularly in terms of data, in terms of calculating the sustainable yield or taking a decision, how we can use the different data available with us for production of different models and for the decision making. And also I will be dealing in the 3rd section, which will be the role of inland fisheries in achieving the sustainable development goals. So coming to the first section, the inland fisheries challenges and to opportunities. Before going to the inland fishery challenges and opportunities, let us discuss what are the different inland fisheries open water resources that is available in India. If you see the resources, in terms of resources, we are having rivers, we are having mangroves, we are having estuaries, we are having estuarine wetlands, we are having backwaters or lagoons, we are having large and medium reservoirs, we are having small reservoirs. We are also having floodplain wetlands and upland lakes. In terms of their resources, we are having rivers of 0.03 million kilometer, mangroves of 0.36 million hectare, estuaries of 0.3 million hectare, estuarine wetland 0.04 million hectare, backwater lagoons 0.19 million hectare, large and medium reservoirs. What is the difference between small reservoir and large and medium reservoirs? So in Indian context, the small reservoirs has been defined. The reservoirs of when we are constructing a dam, it is forming a reservoir in the river valley. So if the reservoir size of the water holding capacity of the reservoir is less than 1,000 hectare, then it is called as small reservoir. Whereas more than 1,000 to 5,000, it is medium reservoir, and more than 5,000 is called as the large reservoirs. So the large and medium reservoirs are 1.91 million hectare, small reservoirs are 1.51 million hectare. The floodplain wetland, that is 0.5 to 5 million hectare. The floodplain wetland basically being made by the Gangetic river system, the river Ganga and its tributaries and distributaries, which forming a lot of floodplain wetlands in the lower Gangetic region. And we are having an upland lake of 0.72 million hectare. These are the inland open water resources that is available with India. If we come to fact sheets of present production, the wetland and reservoirs are contributing around 40% of the total inland production, out of which reservoir is contributing around 26%, while wetland is contributing around 14% to the total inland capture fish production. Because when we are talking about inland production, the pond or aquaculture production is also part of inland production. But here I am saying about inland capture fish production. So major producers are the reservoir and the wetlands and the rivers. The estimated fish production from the reservoir is around the weighted average 110 kilo per hectare, and approximately 3.446 lakh hectare, 3.46 lakh tons of fish produced from this reservoir. The estimated fish production from the cage culture, that is a kind of aquaculture where we are raising the fish in the cage inside the reservoir, is approximately 28,000 tons out of 14,000 scales that has been installed by Government of India in the different reservoirs of India. The estimated fish production from the floodplain wetlands, if you take an average of 400 kg, that is this 400 kg unweighted average that has been taken out of the research of ICAR CIFRI, and the approximate production is around 2 lakh tons. So the total fish production from the reservoir and wetland in 2021 was 5.75 lakh tons. When we are talking about the total inland production, including the aquaculture production, which is around 10 million metric ton in India, approximately. So reservoirs and wetland, including the cage culture, is contributing only 8.7% of the total inland fish production. However, if you see the potential of the reservoir in India is around 9.5 lakh tons. And the potential from the wetland is around 5 lakh tons. The reservoirs are being called as the sleeping giants. That means that there is a huge potential of these reservoirs are there, but we are not yet able to harness the potentiality of the reservoir in terms of fish production. The same is the case of wetland fisheries production. There is a huge potential for the wetlands in terms of fish production enhancement is there, because the way Indian population is growing, there is a huge demand on food, and because there is a huge demand, we have to depend on the natural resources, what is there or what is available with us, and what are the different way in which, in a sustainable manner, we can increase the fish production from these natural resources, either from the reservoir or from the wetlands. So we have to harness the potential. How we can do to harness the potential of the reservoirs and the wetlands? Let us discuss what are the issues. Let us discuss the in terms of wetland, what are the different resources in terms of wetland. Then we will discuss about the reservoir and what are the different aspects in which we can increase the fish production from the reservoir. So if you see the different types of wetland, it is the different types of wetland. So areas under wet paddy cultivation, that is around 40.9 million hectare. Area suitable for fish culture is 3.6 million hectare. Areas under capture fisheries 2.9, mangroves 0.4, estuaries 3.9, and impoundments 3, around 58.2 million hectares. If you see the distribution of wetlands in the different states of India, including the northeastern states, so we are majorly we are having in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, then Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Tripura. So the names of the wetlands are different in the different states. Like Uttar Pradesh, they used to call the wetlands as Tal or Chil. If you go to Bihar, the same wetlands will be called as Mon, Chor, or Dhar. In West Bengal, this is called as Bil, Charha, Bor. In Arunachal Pradesh, it is called as Bil. Assam also it is called as Bil. Manipur, it is called as Pat. Meghalaya, it is called as Bil, and Tripura, it is called as Bil. In terms of area, in terms of hectare, in the different states, it is around 5,54,000 hectares in the different states, distributed throughout the different states of India. These are the resources in terms of different wetlands and in terms of the area they are having in different states. Why the wetlands are important to us? Why we are discussing a lot of wetlands? Because of the service, goods and services that is being provided by these wetlands. In terms of provisioning, they are providing food, they are providing fresh water, they are providing fiber and fuel. Like for the jute rating, wetlands are being used with the ICAR that can be utilized for the production of the fiber and also for the fuel. And also, it is providing a lot of shelter to a number of macrobenthic organisms, fish, bird. So it is also important for the biodiversity. In terms of cultural aspect, people utilize wetlands for spiritual and inspirational activities, for their recreational activities like roaming around the wetland, sport fisheries. These are the cultural activities. It can be utilized for the aesthetic purpose and also for the educational purpose for the students. In terms of regulating services, it is also helpful. The wetlands are helpful for the climatic impact regulations in terms of water storage and also the maintaining the groundwater level in the nearby area. It is also act as a kind of a flood control because it is kind of a reservoir for the water from the catchment area, all the water from the catchment area that is coming to wetlands. So it is working as a flood control mechanism. Also, the macrophyte in the wetland, they absorb the nutrients or the organic pollutants that is there in the wetlands. So the organic pollutants that is coming from the nearby area or from the catchment area, that is being taken by the macrophytes. So it is also act as a pollution controlling mechanism. And all we know that it is also important for the all type of natural hazards. In terms of climate change, if you say in terms of supporting services, carbon sequestration, all are today we are discussing about climate change and carbon sequestration. And wetland is serving since years together for the carbon sequestration. So that's why it is important to conserve our wetlands. If you see the urban wetlands in most of the cities now, when there is a rain, I'm talking about the Indian cities, when there will be rain, there is immediate flood in all over the urban cities in India. It is because the urban wetlands, which was practically working as a reservoir for the water from the catchment area or from the town, that is worked as a reservoir. But because these urban wetlands, mostly they are being either used as a dumping ground or that has been used for other purposes. So the main role of the urban wetlands that today and as on today, the urban wetlands are not doing their role. Let us come to the issues that is occurring in the floodplain wetlands. The major issues, you can see the Eichernia, because Eichernia will grow when there will be a lot of nitrogen content, or basically the organic pollution. So the organic pollution that is coming from the catchment area is affecting the wetlands. So there is a huge, massive growth of Eichernia, and we all know it is not a native species of India. So now Eichernia has become an invasive and creating a lot of problem for the fishermen in terms of increasing the fish production from the wetlands. And it has to be cleared manually from the wetlands. So it is a very gigantic task for the fishermen, and it is also a labor intensive and cost intensive. Second point is the wetlands have lost their connection from the parent rivers. See, wetland is having, apart from the IMC culture, which is being introduced by the fishermen into the wetland, it is also a kind of a storage for lot of small indigenous species that is available in the wetlands. So small indigenous species are basically come during flood to the wetlands from the main river. As because the wetlands have lost its connection from the parent river, it is not getting the seeds, which is kind of a lateral in terms of, if you see the migration pattern of fish, small indigenous species, they used to have a lateral migration. They come from the parent river to the wetlands. As because there is a kind of detachment from the parent river due to the dikes, due to the road construction, a number of other activities, which has kind of creating a barrier between the parent river and the wetlands, which has created a problem in terms of the population of the small indigenous species. Small indigenous species are rich in vitamins, micronutrients, and the minerals that is required in the very minute quantity in human requirements. So they are practically good for our health. They are healthy food. So we need to conserve or we need to produce in a sustainable manner the small indigenous species from these wetlands. Third point is the decrease in total water volume, because there are a lot of other activities that is going on in the periphery of the wetlands and the urbanization, particularly the urbanization, which has created a a problem in the water holding capacity, because when there is a deforestation in the catchment area, the silt and sand that will come from the catchment area to the wetlands. So day by day, the deposition of silt, clay, and other organic pollutants from the catchment area kind of hampering the capacity of the wetland to kind of reserve the water. So the water reserve capacity of the wetland is decreasing day by day. And wetland is not only used for the fisheries purpose. Fisheries is a part of activity of the wetlands. For example, I am saying in wetland, particularly in West Bengal, in the wetlands, jute rating. I mean, people will cut the jute and they will put in the bundles in the wetlands for around 1 month, 2 month period, 1 to 2 month period. While doing the jute rating, it is affecting the water quality. So fish nearby the jute rating area will die. So it is important. There are a number of users are there, and how best we can utilize the needs of the different users of the wetland, that is important. Fourth point is lack of good governance. See, governance is a big thing. I'm not discussing a lot of issues of governance, but what I want to say is that because there is not a good governance in the wetlands, it is happening because of they don't have the voice, or their voice is not properly being addressed, and sometimes their leaders are not so vocal, so they could not they are not able to address their issues. And sometimes the leaders, their political leaders, they think about their own political agenda rather than the wetlands and the fisheries. So the people who are having more muscle power or money power, they become the leaders, community leaders, but they are least bothered about the issues of the fisheries. So governance is a kind of a major thing which is affecting the wetland production. And the last one is the low productivity. The productivity from the wetland is decreasing day by day. What are the technical opportunities to address low productivity? Particularly, I will address the low productivity, which CIFRI is working since last 30 years on how to increase the fish production from the wetlands. So wetlands can be considered as the culture-based fisheries. What is the difference between capture fisheries and culture-based fisheries? Culture-based fisheries, we are stocking some of the fish species inside the inland water bodies, and after some times we are capturing them. So because there is a less number of the stocks in the water body, we are additionally stocking from the outer environment. So how we can do that? Because we know when we are transferring fish seeds from one environment to another environment, there is a chance of mortality, because when fish seeds will be transferred from a particular environment and we are transferring to another environment, the temperature, water quality will be different in the two environments, which will affect the survivability of fish. So how we can do the seed and the culture of the seeds inside the wetland environment, and then we can release them into the environment, because they are already in the wetland environment, and once we are releasing them to the environment, there will be no mortality. So pen culture technology. What is pen culture? Pen culture is nothing but surrounding an area of the wetland for the raising of the fish seeds. So we can surround a particular area of the wetland, then we can release the seeds. So CIFRI is having its own pens, HDPE pens, and it is of approximately 0.1 hectare area, and we can stock around 20 to 30,000 of fish seed in 0.1 hectare of areas of pen. So this pen will kind of support the fisherman in kind of in situ raising of the fish seeds in the same environment. So the fish seeds will be acclimatized to the environment, and when we are releasing them, their growth will be faster in the wetlands. So how we can do the pen culture? For the pen culture, the important thing is the site selection, where we have to install the pens. Because most of the places we have seen the adoption of the pen culture. People prefer it, but after sometimes they think that, I mean, they're not adopting it. So we have done also a why people are not doing the adoption of the pen culture. The problem is that the site, one of the problem is the site selection. We have to find a site where the water depth should not be more than 5 to 6 feet and not less than 4 feet. So those area can be considered as pen culture, and it should be like free from aquatic weeds, and it should be kind of easily accessible for the, because sometimes we may have to provide some additional feeds for the juveniles inside the pen culture. So those things are important, the site selection. Second thing is the installation of pen, how to install the pen, then how we can do the management of the pen, because the water has to flow from the pen to the wetland and wetland to the pen, so that the plankton from the wetland that can move to the pen area. If there will be kind of algal growth in the pen, that need to be cleaned regularly. So there is some management aspects of pen culture is there that need to be diligently obeyed by the fishermen. They have to clean the nets so that water can pass through wetland and the pen, so that the fish seeds that is available in the pen, they will be kind of active, and very good seed production can occur. And those fish seed will, in terms of in the long run, they will provide the bigger fish produced from the wetland. So we have to harvest the advanced fingerling. We can culture for around 2 to 3 months period in the pen. Then we have to harvest these fish seeds in the wetland for the production. So there are two things. One thing is that we can do it in pen culture, or we can do it in the nursery, but we are recommending the pen culture inside the wetland, because that is in situ. I mean, your seed that has been raised in an environment that is same as the wetland. So there will be no mortality in terms of fish seed. Second thing is that because they are known to the environment, the growth rate will be very good. The seeds raised in the pen culture. And third thing is seed stocking is important in the wetlands, because wetlands are day by day, the number of seeds that is produced automatically from the wetland is decreasing. And also the wetlands are not connected to the main river to get the seeds during fish seeds during the flooding period, because of there are a number of barriers that is affecting the connection between the wetlands and their parents' river. So we have to do the stocking, and stocking is one of the important factor to increase the fish production. And the size of the fish stock that is to be stocked in the wetland, that is also important. We should not release the small juveniles like our spawn or small fingerlings. The fingerlings should be minimum 80 millimeter size, so that the bigger fingerlings should be stocked in the advanced fingerling in terms of technical term. If you say this is the advanced fingerlings, the fingerlings means finger size seeds. So the advanced fingerling, more than 80 mm size of the fish should be stocked. So in Indian wetlands, we generally stock the IMCs, the katla, rohu, mrigal as the major fish seed in the wetlands. Also, we are releasing grass carp, because wetlands are a lot of macrophytes are there apart from Iconium. So if when we are stocking the grass carp is considered as a weed control fish, so which can control the aquatic weeds inside the wetland. So grass carp can also be added into the IMC in terms, because IMC are the major we can say the consumer preference fishes in India. That's why IMC are being stocked in the wetlands, and IMC is part of Indian major river systems. So they are available in the Indian major river system. As the wetlands are part of the river system, so IMC kind of well grown in this ecosystem. That's why IMC are preferred seed that can be stocked in these wetlands. Apart from IMC, we are also trying to see what are the other climate resilient species, the medium carps, the medium in their size, like Labiobata, Sarana. So all these medium carps are being tested in wetlands, and they're stocking, how much stocking density to be there. Those kind of research also being done by ICAR CIFRI. So we can see the paper one is integration of pen aquaculture into ecosystem-based enhancement of small-scale fisheries in a macrophyte-dominated wetland of India. This is being published by our team in environmental science and pollution research. One more is on the standardization of pen culture of Labiobata in Assam. Climate is another important factor which is affecting wetlands. If you see the reports of climate change and its impact on the wetlands, it is estimated that around 85% of the wetland we may lose 85% of the wetland in future because of the climate change. So why wetlands are more affected to the climate change? Because if you compare the lakes, rivers, and the streams with the wetlands are very shallow. So that is the reason the impact of climate change will be more. Because when we are talking about impact of climate change, two major things: one is temperature, and second is the availability of the water, which are two major things that is affecting the water resources. So because they are cut off from the parent rivers, and if you are not getting proper water, the wetlands are not getting proper water, and with increasing of temperature and more of evaporation and evaporation transportation loss, so the water holding, water availability in the wetland will decrease, and which will affect not only the wetland but also the diversity of flora and fauna inside the wetland. So how we can kind of reduce the challenges of climate change in the wetlands. In terms of mitigation, if you see, we have to do the desilting of the wetlands and opening and widening the linkages channels with the parent river. And we have to reduce the anthropogenic activities. We have to maintain the hydrology. We have to control the exotic species, flora and fauna, and particularly the catchment management. Because when there is a deforestation from the catchment area, which will affect the wetland. So it is not only the wetland, it is the watershed of the wetland. In many times when we are discussing a wetland, we are considering wetland as an individual entity. Wetland cannot be considered as an individual entity. The whole watershed need to be considered as the unit. Because whatever happened in the catchment area of the wetland, it will affect the wetland. So when we're talking about wetland management, we should also talk about the management its catchment area. So if afforestation will be there, then less your sediments will come to the wetlands. In terms of adaptation, what we can do? We can do the pre-summer closure. We will closure the deep pools of the area where we can conserve the small indigenous species, the IMC and other fishes. We can use the refugee and weed-based fisheries. We will cover a particular aquatic beds, like the plant. We can cover a particular with the plants, and we can surrounding them, and the fish will kind of use that particular area as their shelter ground. And ecosystem approach for the wetland management. You can see the pictures labeled as A, B, C, D. We can enclose a particular area in the summer so that can be kind of a shelter ground for the fishes that is available in the wetlands. We can use the deep pools where the fish can use as a refugee, and we can have a weed-based refuge system, and we can use submerged branches of piles, which will kind of act as a shelter ground because people cannot fish in those zones. And also when you are putting bamboos, it will kind of provide a periphyton substratum over it. And most of the fishes, they use periphyton as their food. So it serves both the purposes. So these are the different technical aspects through which we can address the climate change adaptation of particularly conserving and enhancing the fish production from the wetlands. And CIFRI is promoting a kind of integrated wetland management approaches where we can do the aquaculture activities in pen or the nursery, and we can produce the table size fish. And we can do the agri-horticulture in the nearby area of the wetlands. And also we can do the animal raising, like we can raise cattle, we can raise goat, we can do the duck farming. And also the wetlands can be considered as ecotourism, either for sport fisheries, in terms of sport fisheries, or in terms of boating, in terms of recreation. So as a whole, we have to develop wetlands in a holistic approach. So the two major resources, one is your wetland and the second one is the reservoir. The same principles also apply for the reservoir. The problem is in the reservoir is that fishermen, when we are discussing with the fishermen of the reservoir, they always used to complain, we are stocking the fish, and when the gates of the reservoir is opened for the irrigation purpose, we are losing our fish species. So when to stock the fish and when to harvest, and whether we should stock the fish or not. Because in the small reservoir where water retention is decreasing from the post-monsoon to pre-monsoon, if you see the water retention capacity, it will decreasing from like in a negative way from post-monsoon to pre-monsoon. And IMC cannot breed themselves or establish themselves in the small reservoirs. So we have to stock the additional fish seeds of IMC, the Indian major carps, that is Rohu, Katla, and Mrigal. So it is recommended that around 1,000 numbers per hectare of Indian major carps should be stocked in the reservoir, and the size of the fish stock should be more than 80 mm size, so that the fish can establish themselves. Or else there will be a lot of mortality, because there are natural predators that is available in the reservoir. So to overcome the natural mortality, we have to stock the bigger size fish seeds in the reservoir. Also the governance system in the reservoir is similar to the wetlands. So the governance system need to be like strengthened, and the voice of the leaders of the fishermen, that has to be improved. The problem with in the reservoir is that stocking perfect size of fish seeds. Though fishermen know that the size of the fish seed should be more than 80 mm in length, but it is always very difficult to get the bigger size of or the advanced fingerling and stocking them. So they can raise the fish seeds near to the reservoir area in the nursery, or they can do also the pen culture in the reservoir, and they can raise their own fish seed, and they can release in the reservoir. The second option arises how to increase the fish production is the cage culture, which is coming as a new opportunity. Because when we stock the seed, we are not sure whether we can catch them or not. That is a big question from the fisherman. Even if we stock, we are not sure that we will catch them when they will grow to bigger size. So cage culture is an alternative approach where we are providing cages inside the reservoir, and we are culturing fish in the cage, so that we are sure that we can harvest them because they are inside the net in the cages. So cage culture is becoming is coming as a new opportunity for the fishermen, where they can harvest around 2 to 3 tons from one cage. And also important that is that how many cages we need to establish in a particular reservoir, because we cannot cover the whole reservoir for the production of fish inside the cages. Because when we're talking about cage culture, it is also a little bit kind of an impact on the environment, because in cage we are providing additional feed which is having more nitrogenous content. So the waste feeds and the waste material from the fish, that is going to the same environment, which might create a problem in the long run. So we have to be very careful the number of fish cages that is required for a particular reservoir. So CIFRI has calculated a ratio, and it is 0.01% of the total area can be covered with cages, not more than that. And we have evaluated practically whether the stocking of fish seeds is having some kind of impact in terms of fish production, enhancing the fish production or not. We have done around 40 reservoirs of Odisha, and that is published in Wiley, and one more paper on spatio-temporal changes from the long-term data series that is published in ESPR, Environmental Science and Pollution Research. Next comes to let us come to the river system. That is one of the another water body which is being impacted by barrages, dam. We are not having continuous flow in the river, and also the overexploitation that has hampered the fish production from the rivers. So I will discuss mostly on the barriers that has affected the fish production in the rivers. When we are talking about the barriers, we are always think about the big reservoirs, the dams. It is not only the dams, it is also the any kind of barrier in the tributaries or distributaries of the major river system can affect the fish migration. We know that only when we're talking about fish migration, we talk about only hillside in India because it is migrating from sea to freshwater. That's why everybody is talking about hilsa. But apart from hilsa, all the fish, they do migrate. Either they do lateral migration, they are going to from the river to the floodplain area, or there is a kind of a diatomous migration. They will move from one place to the other in the river for the purpose of breeding or the purpose of food. So migration is definitely occurring in the river or in the streams. So what is the major impacts in the small streams or the small rivers? Basically, the box bridges, irrigation structures, culverts, flood protection walls, these are affecting the small streams, the fish migration in the small streams. If you see the picture in the right-hand side, the above, you can see there is a culvert, and after some time, what will happen? The headless, that is the water coming from the end point of the culvert to the ground, that will increase. So fish can come downstream, but fish cannot migrate upstream because that is creating a barrier. If we can provide kind of a natural substratum like stones, both the sides of the culvert, so it will provide a natural environment. Second thing, when in the culvert, it is a flat surface kind of thing, a smooth surface. So the water velocity will be quite high, which will impact the juveniles and the fish. So what we can do, we can provide some natural substratums like stones, so that which will reduce the water flow inside the culvert, so that which will create a natural environment for the fish. So these are smaller mechanisms which can improve the fish migration in the streams or in the small rivers. Also, when we are providing the irrigation structures, we can provide the irrigation structures, the natural substratum in a 1:30 slope, so that fish can migrate downwards and fish can migrate upwards. These are the small interventions which will affect positively the fish migration and fish production in the streams and in the rivers, apart from the fish ranching. Because in many rivers, the IMs, particularly the Indian major carps production has been reduced because their biomass has been reduced. That has been proved from different models. So we'll discuss the model in the model section. So fish ranching is also important. We have to do the fish ranching in the riverine system so that the fish production can be maintained. But while doing the fish ranching, we should not ranch the fish from the hatchery seed produced seeds. The fish can be collected from the river. They can breed naturally, and the natural seeds can be ranched in the river, so that the genetic stock of the river should not be disturbed. If we stock the fish seeds from the hatchery raised one, then that will affect the genetic stock of the fishes in the river system. Let us come to the next section, which is data section. What are the issues of data in terms of inland fisheries? Inland fisheries is always considered as a data limited fisheries or data poor fisheries. We don't have data for the in terms of when generally in the marine sector, when we do the stock assessment, we are having length frequency data, length at age, or length frequency data, catch data, effort data. All these data are available in the marine fisheries. But in terms of inland, because it is inland marine, in terms when we are comparing inland with the marine fisheries is a very kind of regulated fisheries where the landing is done at a particular landing site. Fishermen used to land at a particular landing site, but when we are discussing about inland fisheries, there are a number of issues are there, because when we are talking about river stretches is not having any particular landing sites. People can catch at any point, and most of the inland fisheries are sustenance fisheries, so people catch fish for their own consumption purpose rather than the commercial purpose. So there are a lot of issues are there with inland fisheries and inland data. So presently what has happened that inland fisheries is utilizing the data limited assessment methods of marine fisheries, and those models are now being applied in inland sector for the assessment of sustainable yield from the inland waters. So when we're talking about the model, the logistic model, that is the surplus production model by Scaffer, what happens in an environment, if there is a population, there will be new recruitment to the population, and also there will be growth of the population, which will be added into the increase in biomass of the population. And what will be deducted from them is the natural mortality that is occurring due to disease, due to cannibalism, due to old age. These are the natural mortalities. And also the catch, that is in terms of fishing pressure or the production, that has to be deducted from the population. So there are in a population, there is a recruitment and there is also a growth, and that is to be added to the population. And we have to deduct the death, the mortality that is happening in the environment, and also the catch. So if you see the biomass at t+1 time, it depends on the biomass what was there at the age t or in the year t, and the recruitment happened in the environment, then the growth happened in the environment, minus m is the natural mortality and c is the catch. So when we're talking about the surplus production model, it is always deals the concept of that the capacity of the fish to be caught by the fishers is equal for all the species. But the problem is that practically when we're talking about in real time, the catchability of a particular fish, that depends on the biomass of the fish. If the biomass will be more, then the catchability of the fish will be more. When the biomass will be less, the catchability of the fish will be less. However, in surplus production model, it is assumed as constant. So if you see the surplus production model, in the x-axis it is the biomass, and the y-axis it is the surplus production. And surplus production is being calculated based on the R is the intrinsic growth rate. It is multiplied with the biomass, and also the surplus production dependent on the carrying capacity, the present biomass and the carrying capacity. So the maximum production can be, so surplus production can occur at k/2, that is half of the carrying capacity of the environment. Suppose a particular environment is having a carrying capacity of 1,000 ton, then we can get a maximum sustainable production at the biomass of 500 metric ton. So 500, we have to maintain at least 500 metric ton of biomass in the environment. So this is the basis on which the present data limited stock assessment methods has been developed, which is, we can suppose we are having only the catch data, we can do the surplus production model. The surplus production model will give a better result if you are having catch and standardized effort information. Suppose we are having staggered length frequency. Generally, when we do the stock assessment, length frequency data is required to use FAO's FISAT software, and monthly length frequency data are required. But when we are not having monthly data, but we are having staggered data, like in particular year, we are having 3 times, next year we are having 4 times of length frequency data, those data can be utilized in the data limited fisheries like LBB method or LBSPR methods. We'll discuss more. Those data limited assessment methods can be utilized for the stock assessment purposes to know how much pressure we are providing, how much pressure we are giving to the environment, or what is our sustainable production. So we have done a analysis for the river Brahmaputra, why fish ranching is required in the rivers. So from our analysis from the CMSY++, which is a data limited method, is that the biomass has reduced to from the biomass required for the maximum sustainable yield, and it cannot be improved unless we can support the system to increase its biomass. That's why fish ranching has to be done in the rivers. This is about CMSY++. This is a data limited software being developed by Dr. Process and their team from the British Columbia University. And it is taking the data from catch. From the catch data, we can calculate the MSY level. Also from the catch and effort data, or the catch from the catch and biomass data, or catch and catch per unit effort data. These are the data requirement for CMSY model. These models are particularly working on based on artificial intelligence and NCMC calculations, and also the Bayesian approach. We are providing some information, prior information, based on our experience, what might have occurred in the environment. Based on our information, this data limited stock assessment model will support us in terms of calculating the maximum sustainable yield.
Pranay,
yes,
maybe if you can conclude in a few minutes,
yes,
to leave some time for questions and discussion.
Yes. And these are the results we will get from CMSY++. I'm not going to discuss about most about that. Then we are also having a Java, SRA+. These are the other stock assessment models that can be used in the data limited situation. Length-based indicator. This is another method. Suppose we are having the length frequency data, and using them, we can use the traffic light system, like what is your target fisheries till your target you achieve. It is a kind of a green signal. From target to limit, that is kind of yellow signal. Beyond limit, we cannot catch. So LBI will help us in calculating our status of the fisheries. Then whether fishery harvest control rules should be same to all the species. Different species have different biological activity. Suppose I'm giving an example here, fish A and fish B. There are 2 different species, and fish A breeds in year 1, and fish B spawns in year 2. If the harvest strategy will be similar to both the species, then how it is impacting I will show. And you can see from this slide that the same harvesting strategy will affect the fish in the long run. Fish A is kind of improving, but fish B, the stock is decreasing. So we have to be very careful while calculating the harvesting strategy. We should know the fish biology, the recruitment status of the fish. LBSPR is the length-based spawning potential ratio. If you are having length frequency data, L infinitive data, the maximum length it can achieve in its lifetime. M by K, the natural mortality by growth curvature. Then the maturity lengths, like length at 50%, length at 90%. If these data are there, then we can utilize the length-based spawning potential ratio. And when we are having more data, so we can do the ecosystem modeling. Like we have done some models on ecopath. You have used ecopath, which is being basically utilized for the marine environment, but we will utilize the same in the wetlands for Chilika Lake, and also for one of the floodplain wetlands in West Bengal. And we have calculated the stocking density of grass carp that is required for the wetlands. So ecopath models also can be utilized for the modeling purpose of estimating the stocking density or the impact of the macrophytes. The third section is about the SDGs and what CIFRI is doing in achieving SDGs through inland fisheries activities. So it is SDG and poverty through our how we can increase the fish production from the inland waters, and by increasing the production we can increase the livelihood and their income. Zero hunger is about how the wetlands can be utilized for the household nutritional security. We can do the hapa-based aquaculture. We can conserve the small indigenous species, because small indigenous species are being consumed by the local community in the wetlands, which will provide a household nutritional security. When you're talking about women empowerment, we can do through involving women in wetland management, also through other alternative livelihood approaches, like in periphery of the major urban area, we can provide ornamental fisheries, and women are good because that takes a very less time of their whole out of the whole household core work, and they can it will be an added advantage for their income. And in terms of economic growth, like recent work in economic growth, the Prime Minister of India is emphasizing on doubling farmers' income. So, which can be possible in reservoir through cage culture and culture-based fisheries, and also from the wetland from pen culture and culture-based fisheries. And the last one is the climate change. SDG 12, like responsible consumption and production from the wetlands and the reservoirs, so that the really kind of sustainable production from the wetlands and reservoirs can be achieved. And we have to also promote the climate resilient spaces to kind of counterfeit the climate impacts in the inland open waters. And also to achieve the SDG of 15 life on land, we have to conserve the small indigenous species, because they are more in terms of nutrients, minerals, and vitamins. Important thing is that information and how it is coming to you, and whether you are getting all the information or not. Until unless you get the complete information, it is very difficult to manage the inland water resources. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Dr. Parida, for that very detailed presentation highlighting the importance of inland waters in small-scale fisheries. Of course, there is a lot of technical developments that is taking place, and it's good to know some of the research that is being done by your team, and the overall potential of inland waters and small-scale fisheries in inland waters for viable small-scale fisheries. So thank you very much. So we don't have a lot of time, but we have a few questions that the audience would like to ask you. So I would just ask, and if you could briefly answer to those. It will help us to kind of conclude within the limited time. So the first question is by Faluke Ariola from Nigeria, and Faluke is asking, so she says, thank you for a good presentation. The lack of good governance is a challenge in managing wetlands. Should there be a worldwide propaganda of the importance of wetlands to draw the needed attention?
Definitely, yes. We need to raise the issues of the fishermen, why it is important for them. And apart from the fish production, wetland is also providing a goods and service, a lot of other goods and services. So we need to conserve wetlands, whether it is in urban area or peri-urban area or in the rural area. So I agree with the concept that we should raise an issue for the wetland conservation throughout the world.
And as far as we know, there are international efforts to focus on the conservation of wetlands. So the Ramsar is one that is doing significant work in terms of highlighting the
wetland conservation.
Wetland conservation. and linking this kind of research and linking the small scale fisheries with that could be a nice way to kind of focus not only on the
IUCN also focusing on the conservation of the wetlands.
yes
Wetland International is also working on the wetland conservations. So lot of organizations are working on wetland conservations. So we can work together with IUCN and Wetland International and other organizations working worldwide for the wetland conservations to create the awareness.
Yes, yeah, and Ariola's really good question about the governance aspect is how scientific research like similar to what you have presented can potentially contribute to good governance or governance in the small scale fisheries within wetlands. So there is a lot of potential for connecting governance and the scientific research that you have done.
Yeah.
So the second question is by Europe Diary. I think this is the person asking the question is representing Europe Diary. Very informative presentation. My questions is, what role do community managed water bodies in India play in contributing to unorganized data collection in inland fisheries? I think the person is Mukesh Bhandarkar.
Okay. Basically, we are dealing with the community in terms of there is cooperatives that is being they are the caretaker of the wetlands. They are producing or enhancing the fish production. So we are having good relation with the community, the fisheries cooperatives, and they are having a data how much fish they are catching from the wetlands. So we are collecting the data from the cooperative society. But I still need, I still believe that this cooperative society or the fishers organization in the small scale fisheries need more kind of support from different organizations to improve their capacity in terms of data recording, in terms of their technical capacity building. So they need continuous support from different organizations. That is required.
Okay, and the last question from Faluke again. Are there no screens to prevent the escape of fish from the reservoirs to reduce fish loss? Any consideration for effects on the biodiversity of the escaped fish on other water bodies around?
That's actually the total reservoir fisheries. If you see the governance, the government governance system of the reservoir, the water bodies belongs to the water resources, and the fish production enhancement is done by another department, fisheries department. So when we are discussing with the water resource department to put some kind of structure, they're saying no structure can be built on the dams. So that's a big issue. But however, if there is a kind of natural substratum like stones can be provided in the downstream up to a kind of 30:1 slope, so the water can move in a kind of in a slopey area, and we can provide a kind of a screen up to like 1 kilometer away from the main reservoir. That can be possible, but it is hardly, there is a kind of a discussion that is required between the water resource department and the fisheries department to kind of building that kind of structure.
I don't see any questions from the audience at this point, but if I may just ask you one quick question before we bring it to an end. It's about you talked a lot about the culture-based fishery in wetlands and reservoirs. Right. What is the significance or extent and also importance of capture fisheries in the same water bodies? Is one replacing the other, or they are practices are complementary in areas? What is your research?
It's practically complementing to each other. We are culturing, but we are not providing additional feed into the system. So they are being raised in the pen and they are released into the systems, but they are not being fed with the additional feed. So we are not providing any additional kind of nitrogenous material, because feed is more of protein content. So we are not providing any nitrogenous material to the environment. So it is a naturally grown kind of thing. So we are one way we are doing some kind of management practice. So it is called culture, but practically we are capturing them. Mm-hmm. So it is complementing with each other. So because the biomass is decreasing day by day, because it is not having a connection. So we need to do the culture-based fisheries, so to improve the fish production from the wetlands, to provide the livelihood to the fishers.
And that kind of effort really draws our attention to the need for governance in institutional and policy mechanisms around those wetlands, because the nature of fishing is changing in the wetlands itself, and that attracts the governance point that was being discussed by you.
Yes.
And Ariola's question as well. So a quick one. What is the significance of then inland fisheries, especially the wetlands and reservoirs that you talked about, in small-scale fisheries viability? So you talked about a lot of potential of those water bodies and fishing in those water bodies for small-scale fisheries viability, but what is the potential going forward? And then what is the significance of having small-scale fishery viability within those water bodies? Of course, under the larger threat of climate change and other multiple drivers.
Yeah, though multiple drivers are affecting this inland water bodies like reservoirs and wetlands, but still there are some technical innovations are happening how to increase the fish production. And fishermen are also, they are doing some kind of local initiatives. Like I will share one experience of West Bengal wetland, where they have banned the catching of the small indigenous species during the pre-monsoon period, because SIFs will do breeding in the pre-monsoon period in the month of summer prior to the monsoon. So there kind of some kind of local governance system that is applicable in most of the wetlands. So that is kind of additional benefit for the wetland production enhancement and the conservation. But they need, I will still focus on that the capacity building requirement of the governance systems in the wetlands. They require more support in terms of how to increase their governance systems, how best they can do the governance for the, because there are multiple users are there in the wetland, not only the fishers. There are people who are utilizing the water for the agriculture purpose. There are people who are utilizing the water for the drinking water purpose. So there are a lot of other users are there. So we have to take into consideration all the users and create an environment for the good governance. That is kind of a possibility.
Thank you. I'll just read out two comments from Ariola again, before we conclude. There's no need to perhaps respond to that. Ariola is saying, thank you for the response. The effects of climate change are worsened by the degradation of wetlands and reduction of their buffer effects. And the other comments he's making is another follow-up from, why not work towards a unified common governance body to coordinate activities for the good of small-scale fisheries, human and ecosystem both, So really great comments and a good note to conclude our webinar talk today. Before I do that, thank you very much, Dr. Parida, once again for that elaborate and detailed and really informative presentation, giving all aspects of your research, going into the technicalities and the and the science-based approach that you have taken, and also linking with governance and societal imperatives of small-scale fisheries. So this discussion will continue, of course, into the future. I will have another opportunity to talk about it, but I would like to tell our audience that on the last Friday of this month, again, we have another webinar talk that is going to be taking place. Please join us again, and we look forward to having you, for another talk in October. So thank you once again to the audience, and thank you once again to Pranay, to you for your talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, B2B.